Hey, everybody, welcome. My name is Matt Graber. I'm the president and founder of Unity Vertex, and here we are for session two of what I lovingly call New Year, New Season ticket holders. I kind of figure, after coming up with this name, I think a new season ticket holders for a new year would have been a little better to articulate, but there you go. I've already committed to this bit. This is session two, which is techniques on renewing subscriptions. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with this. We're gonna go over just some techniques that are, I think, innovative, and some that are kind of, more basic. I think there's stuff for everybody here. I want to say that, one of the things a friend of mine who is a telemarketing expert once paid me the compliment of saying that I'm one of the most aggressive subscription renewal people he's ever met, which is a great compliment because I think if you're working with a telemarketing firm, they're gonna hate me to some degree. They love me because I believe in telemarketing and I always hire telemarketing, but they hate me to a certain degree too because I so thoroughly go through my renewals that usually there aren't very many leads left for the telemarketers because I'm happy to pay telemarketers to sell somebody something. I don't want to pay them to remind people to renew. So anyway, with that said, let's jump into it. Who we are at Unity Vertex. We are experts in marketing and fundraising for performing arts organization and management as well. We offer interim work. So if you want to hire myself or my colleagues for interim either marketing or fundraising help, we can do campaign planning. That can be everything from a subscription campaign, single ticket campaign, to like a fundraising campaign or even a major gifts campaign. We'd be happy to help you with any of those sort of things. Rebranding. I led a rebrand at San Diego Opera that won an American Marketing Association award. So if you see the pretty colors at San Diego Opera, those are the work that I did personally, and I'm very proud of that work, and I'd be happy to do that data-driven process with your organization. Subscription acquisition and renewals. Again, that's what we're going to be talking about today, but that's something I'm very well versed in, and much more. We also are even dabbling in artificial intelligence and how to use those tools for our work. I use them all the time, but also like boutique solutions. We've been exploring some possible boutique solutions for different things. And if your organization's interested in that, please contact me because we are in that business as well. So with that said, why subscription renewals? I hope we all know this, but maybe there's some folks out there that are not arts marketers that are board members or whatever, or just friends out there that are looking at this. Why subscriptions are really important, and the thing is it provides financial stability for your organization. Sustaining members, there's a big crossover in our industry of people who are both NPR fans. And when you listen to NPR, they talk about the sustaining gifts and how, like, if you give every month, that is a reliable source of income. Anybody that's done any work in finance, it's great to be able to look at your cash flow, your monthly cash flow, and just know there's money that you can count on every year or every month. Well, subscribers are like that for us. The subscribers are our loyal patrons, and they renew at a very high rate, especially those that have more, as we covered last week, those that have more shows are more or have been with the organization longer. They have lifetime loyalty. So these are people that once they get into subscriptions, you have an easier time moving them to donors, to possible board members. They're great people to go for resources when your organization needs it. Also, like planned gifts as well. A lot of working in organizations, there's certainly been times where suddenly some subscriber that didn't even have a really expensive series leaves us millions of dollars when they pass. So they are very important to us, and they have a donor-like impact on our organization. You may not regard your subscribers as donors. Your subscribers, a lot of them regard themselves like donors, and they should be treated thus. They should be treated like part of the family. So, I'm going to get into some renewal strategies. And first, I want to talk about what to do early on. We're going to go kind of chronologically through this. I like to do an on-site renewal. So when you begin your renewal campaign, so let's say that you're a theater that runs from October through May. Well, if you have a show in April or May or March, even if you can get it going, it would behoove you to have a presence at those shows for your subscribers to renew their subscription. The reason being is that it makes the transaction easier, allows a personal connection between your box office and the patron, and also a low cost way to do it because your box office people, volunteers or front of house can do it for you. A lot cheaper. You don't even have to mail anything or what have you. Another thing I wanted to emphasize is an idea of a partial blind or full blind renewal. Now, I've been at organizations where people get hung up on like, oh, we don't know our shows yet, and ergo we cannot announce them to our patrons. The thing is that's important to some people, but not all. There's a lot of people that if you sent them an invoice with your logo at the top of it, they would mail you a check. They trust you that much. Don't take advantage of that. You don't want to be nefarious, but if you know you're going to do the season next year, and maybe you know 3 out of the 6 shows, maybe you know 4, it's fine to show those anchor points and then do TBAs for the rest. Even a full blind renewal, sometimes circumstances happen, especially coming out of COVID. We were really kind of guessing as we went. Full blind renewal is fine because the cash flow needs of your organization may not meet with the timing of planning, and so it's okay. You're not ripping these people off. They want to be part of your organization, and like I said before, they regard themselves like donors, so they're happy to send you that check and let them do that. Take their generosity. Uh, and this, of course, means avoid delays. Don't delay on your announcement because of artistic choices. If you can get your management and artistic to agree to that, you could. There are patrons that are going to have to wait to hear the shows to renew, and that's fine. What this allows you to do, if you start with this partial blind or full blind renewal, you're allowed to get. You're going to be able to get a touch point early to these people, and you're going to lengthen the sales cycle. And the longer your sales cycle and the more touch points you get, the more likely you're going to renew them. As we know, 7 to 10 impressions to make a sales decision. These are lower patrons. They probably don't need that many, but you still want to hit them as many times as possible. And so like when, the old school way of doing this is we would print a big, beautiful brochure, and it was fun as the marketing director to design this gorgeous brochure, and you would send it to tens of thousands of people. But what we find now is like with your email campaigns and your direct mail, instead of printing that one 16-page brochure, I would print 16 postcards and send one every 2 weeks. Now that's being excessive. I'm illustrating a point. It would be more the one big impression versus multiple touch points. You're going to get a better, my experience has shown me, you're going to get a better reaction by touching the people more. And you want to personalize outreach. Another way that I have found a cool way to approach this with organizations is your more loyal patrons to take those people and divide them up amongst your box office staff and treat them like a portfolio. So like a donor, your donor relations people have certain amounts of people. You would carve these up, and that means that patron, so Matt Graber is a subscriber to your theater. He knows that he calls, Billy in the box office, and Billy takes care of things for him. So that is a way to do it high touch. And also when you get to renewal time, if that's so, then in this whole process, Billy will call me and try to renew me if you have the box office staff to do that. If you don't, if you're a small organization, that's fine. I'll get to some ways to do this in a cheaper way. So season kickoff events are a great way to start this process as well. I don't think you have to have an in-person event at your theater. Often, if you can, great, but often that's a big event to put a lot of time into, and I'm not sure it's going to yield you extra results. But I do think doing one digitally makes a lot of sense that you can host, but you can ignite excitement. You can host an event online. If you can do a hybrid of both, great. If you can include teasers of performances, maybe a Q&A from the artists, all these things you could do on a medium just like this. I'm broadcasting on 3 different platforms right now using this particular piece of software. You could do the same thing with your patrons, broadcast all your social media streams. And for some patrons, you could actually invite them into the Zoom room with you. And so you could have a huge impact without having to put on a big, huge party at your theater. And the goal is to strengthen your ties with these individuals and deepen your relationship. But also, the bigger goal, of course, is to get them to renew. And with that said, when we move into the actual renewal process, this is the way I like to look at it. You start with an incentive stage. So the incentive, I want to be clear, with your subscribers, do not offer a discount to your subscribers. I don't recommend it. Now, some organizations, this is something they've been doing for years and years. Pulling that away would probably, seem suspect to some subscribers. So I'm not saying abandon it entirely, but I'm saying you probably don't need it. Again, these people would write you a check if you sent them an invoice. So a lot of them will. So, but you do want to give them a reason to subscribe today. When you mail something, anything, you want to give somebody a reason to act on it in that moment, because the moment they put that postcard in a drawer is, obviously they're going to forget about it and you got to touch them again. So if you do this, I would say doing an incentive of some sort, such as doing something like enter to win a subscription for a friend, or dinner with your artistic director, or a backstage tour. These are things that you could give away for very little money, but also could make a huge impact and make you a friend of your finance department, because a bunch of those people subscribe in the first month rather than waiting till the second, third month of the renewal process. So that's your early bird incentive. Then you get to a keep your seats message. So you go from the carrot to the stick. You're going to lose your seats. Make that threat rise as it goes. Then you're going to get a reseating threat. Say, hey, if you don't renew by this date, we're going to reseat. And once you get to that, you say, never mind, we're going to extend that for another couple of weeks. So what I'm saying with all this process, you see there's all, and this, we're going to break this down further, but with this, you have so many different touch points to make sure that this person renews with you. Moving on, this is a lovely picture from the Lipinski Family Jewish Arts Festival. I'm glad to be able to use it. So with your communications flow for renewals, it's going to be a few slides here. This is an example. So you announce your seats deadline, send an email. After the email, a couple of weeks later, send a mailing packet. Usually the packet will have an invoice, a letter from the artistic team or something of that nature, or your leadership, and descriptions of the shows that you have, a return envelope. That's the package we all send. You send that, then you follow up with another email. After that, you send a postcard to remind the person, then another email, and then maybe an email right at the deadline. You hit that deadline, that's the incentive deadline. Oh, I got this out of order. Sorry. Sorry, guys. This is so the first one would be the incentive deadline. So sub in, there was a mistake on the slide. This should be the incentive deadline. So you incentivize the person, renew by this date and get a shiny new car or whatever it is you're offering. Then you go into the save your seats deadline. So the save your seats deadline, you're like, okay, if you don't renew by this date, we're gonna turn your seats over. And then you do the extended deadline at the end of that. And so you will, once you get to that deadline, you say, hey, we're going to extend it. You send an email, a postcard. This is where I would get into doing like an automated phone call or courtesy calls from your box office. So if you went with that portfolio plan, maybe this is a time to do this. You could divide this up amongst your box office and development people. There are certain subscribers that your Devo people should call. You should work closely with your development and fundraising people. Even if the development people don't know how to finalize the order, if a telemarketer can take down enough information to get a subscriber across the finish line, your development person can take enough notes. And if it gets to the point that there's certain questions the box office needs to answer, the box office can call the donor back. But it gives the development, the portfolio holder, a chance to make another, high impact touch point with their donor. So don't rob that from them. So as a guy who's worked both sides of that fence, any chance I have to call a donor about something that is not to ask them for money is great because it allows me to further deepen my relationship. Now, obviously, it's all leading to asking for money, but it's a great thing to have. You would follow this postcard, and if you don't have the staff to do this sort of thing, automated phone calls, ringless voicemails. We'll get into some other stuff later, but these are all techniques that you could do to send a message to these individuals, depending on the laws in your state or province. I know in Canada this can be tricky. Certain states. So be sure you check with your laws and also your terms and conditions with your patrons. Make sure you're honoring those things, and also make sure you give people an option to opt out of getting those messages, which most of these systems have that built into. So SMS messages on top of the emails and stuff. The reason is sometimes people need a phone call. And it's a lot cheaper to spend a few cents to send an automated phone call to remind somebody to renew than pay a 10 to 15% commission to a telemarketer. And I love you, my friends in telemarketing, but again, I want to pay you to get new customers, not to remind people to renew. So with telemarketing follow-up, telemarketing can be very effective no matter what size of your organization. But the larger organizations, it's easier. Probably cut off your organization's smaller than like 4.5, 5 million. Telemarketing is probably going to be hard to fit in your budget just to make work, just because of the size of your lead base, unless you're, an organization that is bringing up 3.5 million of that in ticket sales, which would be highly unusual. You should be raising more money. But anything larger than that, you can partner with these firms. I've worked with several that I love, and I'd be happy to help you connect with one if you'd like to, and help you with those the best ways to work on that. And if you don't have that, the personalized follow up, again with box office, volunteer, or something like that. I just think that some people just need a call to get over the finish line. So if you're not comfortable doing the automated phone call, ringless voicemail, and you can't afford telemarketing, gather volunteers and have them call these people and see if you can get it done that way. It's kind of like a fundraising drive because you're probably leaving thousands of dollars on the table not doing it. It'll balance out with the extra box office time you have to pay and maybe some pizza for volunteers. Um, Automated communications tools are something that we should look at more these days. I've been using these for years. Automated phone calls, SMS messages, and ringless voicemails. SMS is not something I've used as much, but in today's day and age, an SMS message we know is something that people respond to a much higher rate than either one of the other options, either email or automated phone calls, or even phone calls. People, and again, legality, terms and conditions, what you want to do if you don't have SMS messaging and you don't have permission this year, when you're renewing all your subscribers, you want to put on, an opt out, if you can say, I would like to receive SMS messaging, going forward. Make sure you put that on all your renewal forms, everything, so that easy little checkbox. And that way you can put that into your ticketing system and be sure that you have the permission to do it next year because it is extremely cheap and extremely effective. Personalized recordings. If you're going to do the phone call or ringless voicemail, I would recommend you do a voicemail from your artistic director, your conductor, your general director, your executive, somebody of this nature, somebody that the audience recognizes. Who's the person that gives the curtain speech at opening night? That person. He, she, they, whoever they are. The key messages would be to thank the subscribers and get them excited about the upcoming season. Keep this under a minute. You want to keep it as short as you possibly can, but highlight things. And the idea is to create FOMO so that they, make sure they don't want to fear of missing out, in case you don't know what that is, that they don't want to miss this amazing season because it's going to be so exciting. Now, community tie-in, subscribers or stakeholders. You also, I think it's not a bad idea to learn some things from our development friends and make sure people know that, that their subscription does allow help with the sustaining of the organization. This is a tricky line to walk because what you want to do is use this to dovetail into a donation. Say this is part of it, but, we all have heard it. 60% of our income is paid for by ticket sales, or 40 or 50 or whatever your organization is. And we need a donation to cover the other half. And you want to make sure you can foster an emotional connection with the organization. All these things I'm talking about, multiple touch points, emails, phone calls. Another thing I think is important is that if you have first time subscribers, and this is something I meant to put on here, is if you have a first time subscriber, one thing my old box office chief used to do is after the first show, call them and ask them how it was and, if there's anything we could do to improve it. Other places anymore with things like, in-scan, if you have a scanners at your organization, you could have it scanned, and when and have it programmed in the scanner that when they scan a ticket, it shows that it's their first time at the theater as a subscriber, so that maybe the usher knows to welcome them. I've even heard people like, with first time, they get a bunch of tchotchkes, maybe like, these branded whatever stress balls. Chapstick is one we used to really like at San Diego Opera. And you give those out to those individuals to welcome them the first time. Just a little bit of surprise and delight with that first time person, because again, if you get them to renew after 1 year, you want to make that a really special year for them. Because if they renew into their second year, the odds of them renewing again go up exponentially, and the odds of them becoming a donor go up exponentially. I also want to say part of this building an emotional response and building a relationship with your subscriber is making sure that you have really good subscriber perks. So in season communication. So we shouldn't, this isn't like, a good church going person that only goes to church on on Easter or Christmas, or me being Jewish going on the high holidays, going to temple those times. You want to make sure you're communicating with the person all through the year, not just when it's time to renew. So this would be behind the scenes emails, maybe exclusive to them. You could take some other communication and tailor it, and obviously, segment it out, but make it sound like it's for them. You perk alerts. This is a fun idea that a colleague mine used to do, where they would send out a thing like, "Hey, perk alert your subscriber, and one of your subscriber perks is discount on tickets, is discount on a restaurant." And this comes to the second one here: new partnerships. If you collaborate with local businesses, one of the things I do recommend with community engagement and audience engagement stuff, which we're going to talk about next week, I'm sorry, in 2 weeks, the is when you partner with a restaurant or whatever throughout the season, that could be another perk. Like, hey, as a subscriber, you get 10%. And this may be true for all your patrons, but maybe you negotiate something a little extra for that person, a lagniappe, as they like to say in New Orleans. And insider emails, already covered that part. So those are also good to do as well. So key takeaways: early renewals, capture your revenue early. So the longer your sales cycle, the more you're going to get. So you want that to be as long as possible. This does not mean you can't be acquiring new customers at the same time. These two things should probably run in tandem, but typically your renewal campaign will start before your acquisition campaign, just because of the nature of the beast. You sending a partial bind acquisition piece, I would recommend against. Incentives and communication flow. We talked about that, where you start with an incentive and then a subtle threat. The threat escalates into a final deadline. And then another thing I think is really important to talk about here is that you want to be sure that you collaborate with your fundraising and development department very closely. These subscribers, a lot of them give gifts when they renew their subscription. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that there's usually a field in your invoice that could be filled with a suggested donation. So obviously your fundraisers should be feeding into that. There are certain donors that it may be better, like depending on where they are on the moves management system that you're using for your fundraising. Wherever they are, it may be time for them to be called by their portfolio holder. And if so, then that's the person that should be calling them about the subscription, if if at all possible. So just be sure you're working closely with your Devo people. Obviously, this is a marketing effort. It needs to be driven by marketing. The timing of it shouldn't be disrupted by inner squabbles. Sometimes people, this is my patron, this is your patron, sort of stuff. These patrons don't belong to either department. They belong to the organization, and the dollars, when you spend them on production, you can't tell the difference between that, whether or not that costume was paid for by development or marketing dollars. It doesn't make a darn bit of difference. So those fights and squabbles are silly, and those territorial things are silly. We should all be collaborating with each other. So with that said, I am going to wrap this up again. My name is Matt Graber. I'm the president and founder of Unity Vertex, and we, again, do all kinds of marketing and fundraising work, including interim work, rebrands, and what have you. And interim work and what have you. And we'd be happy to help you with those sort of things. And we have 2 more sessions coming up. Subscription acquisition is going to be next Thursday. So I'm going to be looking at techniques on that. And then session four in the following week is going to be community and audience engagement. So we're going to be looking at how to use those to, increase your to get more ticket buyers and to increase the impact of your organization. So I've been told that there were no questions. If anybody has any, you could put them in now. If not, I'm going to go ahead and end the call. And you can obviously always email me at matt@unityvertex.com or visit our website at unityvertex.com where you can see some case studies of some work that I've done. And whatever you're going to do out there, do it with love. Thanks a lot.